And thank you to our panelists who have decided to share their know-how in AI as well as their time. So certainly grateful that you all have joined us. And delighted to everybody in the audience that's decided to invest their time and invest their time with us. We've got a really good panelist conference about what's going on in AI. My name is Jason Cromwitty. As Lamise said, I'm an RPOA board member, been on the board for the past several years. Really exciting to see the growth in the membership as well as delivering highly relevant content. My career spans 30 years as an entrepreneur, an investor, an executive and a board member in talent acquisition and recruiting businesses. Actually, Rob and I worked together in a former life at Aon Hewitt, so it's great to see him here. I'm a former executive at Aileron Group, which is a $300 million staffing firm, and then was the former RPO practice leader at Talent Rise. So just a quick intro of myself. Well, the purpose of the panel is really to unpack the hype, the noise, the truth around AI in recruiting. And today we're looking through the lens of the hiring manager and what their experience is with AI in partnership and collaboration with talent acquisition. This is a panel series that we plan to carry on into next year, and we plan to look at the personas of the candidate as well as the recruiter and dive deeper into those. So first, let me start out. The hype is real. Case in point is you may have seen that Paradox AI was acquired by Workday recently. I think it was they estimate about $1 billion plus acquisition. Paradox was very early in terms of conversational AI and automating those transactions. I heard some numbers about 189 million candidate conversations have been conducted to date. The ROI is strong. You're seeing reductions in time to fill of 75%, conversion rates from a candidate from an application to an actual hire at 70%. So the data is showing that AI's impact in recruiting is real, especially with that example. They've also acquired Sana, which is a learning and agentic AI builder. So they're from an enterprise platform standpoint, Workday is certainly investing heavily in that. I'm sure all of you can attest AI is everywhere in conversations. Our, how our purpose here is how can we unpack it to its impact on recruiting to make it better, cheaper, faster, smarter, and enable hiring managers to make better selection decisions. Trent's also going to go through after this intro, just talk about AI baseline content and information, and talk about agentic and conversational AI. Specific takeaways for today's meeting and panel is practical ways that you can use AI. Share stories of success from Lance, from Trent, from Rob, where they've been successful, how you can collaborate and communicate AI across different stakeholders and its usage. We're going to talk about governance, and then we're going to talk about low-cost tools and data that we've seen impactful in the hiring process. So with that, setting the stage, let me introduce, or actually our panel are going to introduce themselves. So drum roll, please. Rob, if you could kick us off with a quick intro.
Sure. Thanks very much, Jason. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm joining you today from Toronto, Canada. I'm a global recruitment leader at WTW with teams across the world. As Jason mentioned, we worked together many years ago at Aon Hewitt, so I have about 20 years of recruitment experience, and I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
Thanks, Rob. Lance, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm excited to be here. Global talent acquisition for Barracuda, a leading cybersecurity company. And I'm really excited to learn from and with these panelists. And as Lamise encouraged, put some questions in the panel, because as Jason was outlining, we really want people to walk away from today with some actionable items and for all of us, something new learned.
Agreed. And Trent?
Hello, Trent Cotton. I am the head of talent insights and analyst relations for iCIMS. I'm a recovering CHRO and TA leader for 22 years. It hurts me every time I say that. So I oversee a lot of our free data reports that we put out, our workforce report, as well as our two anchor reports. And I love talking about AI. And I also do a lot of content for my channel called The Human Capitalist.
Outstanding. Well, good. Well, welcome. Thank you again for being a part of this panel. Look forward to the conversation. So, um, when we think about our audience, the hiring manager and folks on the phone, I'm sure many of you are on the AI journey. Some are very in the beginning of that journey, and on the continuum, some may have organizational policies that are, let's say, very strict, while others, let's say at the enterprise level, while others, small to medium-sized businesses may have a little more freewheeling in terms of their usage of it. When we prepped for this meeting, one of the things that popped up is how do we start? How do we get started? And how do I get started on that AI journey? And I thought Lance had a good example at Barracuda around what's a good way to think about starting.
Yeah, happy to share, Jason. Like probably many of you, whether you're in a leadership role or individual contributor, where do I start? And for my team at Barracuda, we had the opportunity to be part of the LinkedIn Hiring Assistant pilot project. And so it was nice for a lot of reasons. One, it came with structure. And so we were able to work with the Barracuda team, and we have an AI council to make sure that we were going to be compliant while also testing something new. It also helped us increase visibility across our organization that TA is starting to embrace AI in how we go about best serving our hiring managers and the candidates to find people who are going to accelerate the business. And I'm happy to report that we got some great learnings out of it, to include helping hiring managers have confidence in us that we are looking for tools to help us help them find that critical next person on their team, whether it's a senior leader or an entry-level support role. And so that was just a really good exercise for us, and the chance to have periodic feedback reviews, both inside Barracuda and with LinkedIn, in terms of, are we using the tool to its full capabilities? What can we learn from each other? So I think that's another piece around just encouraging a curiosity about AI. And I'm fortunate to work at a company where everybody is all in on improving our AI fluency, our AI business acumen, and how does that help us do the verb that's part of all our jobs better.
Excellent. Trent, anything to add to that?
My only advice would be start with a governance framework first. I think what we have seen in a lot of organizations is that they get headlong into it, and then it's like, well, we don't have any governance on this. We don't have any approach to responsible or ethical AI, and it's really hard to put that genie back in the bottle. So, don't gag in a gnat and swallow a camel, as they say. Don't get so harsh that you don't really get to test it, but definitely put in some guardrails on the front end. And the only reason I say this is because I have a friend that's a CFO, and he was asking me about AI, and he was so excited to tell me that he used it to do his company's financials by uploading all of their financials into an unguarded ChatGPT. And I had a little bit of a stroke for him and for his CEO. So all the more reason, make sure that you have governance first.
That's an excellent point. Some heartburn there on that one, huh?
Yeah.
Rob, what about you?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I agree with everything Lance and Trent have just said. I also think it's important to take a step back first because it's really easy to get all excited with all the suppliers who are contacting you about all this innovation and really exciting ways to augment your services. But I think first, you really need to start with clarity rather than technology. And the first step is really identifying what's that business problem that you're looking to solve through AI. Is it speed? Is it quality? Is it bias reduction? What is it? And then first look at your current process. Is it working? And what's the level of maturity of your data? Reason being is because you can jump to tools, but the AI is only going to amplify some of the business problems that may exist today. So if you have gaps in your current process, you should probably clean that up first, make sure that the data that you have is valid, and then start doing some further research in the technology that's available, because I think that's going to really help you be successful.
Yeah, I agree. What that's an excellent point. What problem are we trying to solve, especially in recruitment, and defining that first? Where are the challenges? I think that's an excellent point. Trent, I realized I totally missed your AI baseline definition conversation.
Oh, that's fine.
I'm gonna do a two-part question. Could you just do that real quick? I
Sure.
apologize, and then we'll get into some of the vetting for ROI.
Sure. So I was sharing with the team in the preparation that one of the lessons that I learned over the last 18 months is that not everyone defines AI the same way. And so I find that putting it into three different buckets, and this is a very large, broad stroke, but it's going to help us understand which AI are we talking about, because there's a couple of different flavors. So the first one is automation. Think of this as do this for me. It's an if this, then that formula. You go, you program it, you can set it and forget it. I would also say set it, forget it, but inspect it. That is what, believe it or not, a lot of people that I talk to, they go, oh, we're using AI. And all it is just very sophisticated automation. There is AI assisted AI, but AI assisted automation, but most people are just doing automation. So that's bucket one. Do this for me. Next, you have conversational AI. That's your Claude, Gemini, Grok, ChatGPT, all of those. I categorize this as ideate, research, and write with me. Now, I'm still in control. I'm giving it the governance. I'm asking the questions. I'm giving it the prompt, and it's going off, and it's like my really cool sidekick that goes and does whatever I need for it to do, and it brings the information back. I'm still in control. That's where probably 50% of most TA organizations and HR organizations that I talk to, that's where they're just starting to get a little bit of familiarity, and they're okay with that. Where we're moving to, and what the hype term is, agentic AI. This is do this like me, do this with me, and if I tell you to, do this for me. We do not see a lot of agentic AI out there yet, regardless of how many people go, oh, this is an agent. Make sure that you pull that hood up and look, because it's just in its infancy. And so if you've ever heard me talk, especially I know Louise is probably rolling her eyes, agentic AI, think Iron Man. That was agentic AI. He was working with him, he was working alongside, and there were certain things that he did for Tony Stark that Tony didn't have to ask to do, because he was using the reasoning. So that's agentic. That's where we're going. So understanding those three different buckets, I think, is going to really kind of baseline what type of AI we're talking about.
That's perfect. Thank you, Trent. And it actually
Hmm.
segues. This is actually a better
Okay. Hey, it worked out.
Um, like based on the three, definitions that you shared, do you have a rule of thumb or a critical question that you ask vendors on delivering ROI, let's say on agentic or generative AI, that you talk about? Something that you use to help your clients succeed in teasing that out in the beginning?
I'm actually going to go back to what Rob said, which was very sage advice. I wish I would have said it. Um, AI does not solve all problems. So it gets back to what problem are you solving? We have candidate drop off after the interview. Okay, well, let's start with some automation. That might be a good place for us to see if we can increase the engagement. And if we're getting maybe some response emails and we go, hey, maybe a chat bot would be good for them to kind of interact with. Well, that's Gen AI. So I do think that it's really identifying what problem you're trying to solve before you figure out what tool you need.
Hmm. Okay. Lance, what about you on the recruiting assistant example? Were you able to sort of like vet that out in the beginning with some good questions, or it just seemed right for what you wanted to do?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jason. And I think it lines up with what you just heard from Trent in the many of the recruiters on our team in using that specific AI tool, they still create the traditional project and start with
Right.
um, the foundational principles that have helped them be successful in their role. And then as they learn more about what the hiring manager is looking for and the inevitable, um, you need three different people for this one role now with how things are evolving, that's when they maybe have the chance to leverage this new tool, which is help me find this, which would have taken them days. They can start a search and let the tool go to work for and with them. And then we've actually had some nice examples of what was once upon a time maybe a goal would be real-time calibration with the hiring manager. You know, oftentimes they can share with you, I need someone like Jason or Rob. And you can look at those profiles. And of course, LinkedIn would always match up people like that. But then you add in Trent, and now it's this different mix that once upon a time a recruiter could go look for all these different pieces, put it together, and then present it. But now you can sometimes even do that real time. And we're seeing some success with that. Most importantly, I think from the hiring manager lens, which we're trying to take today, is it helps them build trust with the recruiter in that the recruiter is really here to help them find that next special person to drive the business.
Excellent, excellent. And this goes to the next question to you, Lance, and others that let's say I've got no budget. I'm a hiring manager, TA, I've got no budget. Are there free tools and data that could be leveraged in the hiring process to make it to deliver ROI and be most powerful for them? Are there any suggestions to our audience?
I'm Jason, was that back to me?
Yeah, back to you, like improving job descriptions or better uh like your example with that mashup candidate, right? Now, how do I interview questions? Are there things that you've seen that help facilitate that?
So there are and again, I think this is a nice way to follow that roadmap that Trent laid out for us is automation towards helping me to potentially even doing something for me. Whatever kind of shop you're part of, Microsoft Shop, Google Shop, there are tools right there that we can use to improve our job descriptions and then start to actually bring some consistency to them so that every new rec doesn't become a new job description, which then ends up being a different mix of um, job codes and job families and all of that. So, embrace tools like Copilot or Gemini, some of these other tools that can help you be more effective, get the hiring manager to work on that. So these pieces that we're working on around building alignment and understanding of the role with the hiring manager, they can also help with this. And it's not just a TA do this for me, we can do it together. So I'd say take advantage of the tools that are probably already part of your suite of tools that are approved by the company
Yeah,
and that you have ready access to.
excellent. Rob, are you seeing that too within WTW?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thankfully, we benefit from having invested in some platforms already. But if you're a company who hasn't had that ability, then I think we've already raised ChatGPT is an option, largely for content generation. So you touched upon job descriptions, outreach messages, preparing for intake sessions, thinking about what type of questions you want to ask hiring managers, thinking about what kind of questions you want to ask candidates based on the job description. So that's a really, really useful tool when you're early in your journey. And then once you start to make some quick wins, hopefully you can prepare some business cases and get some other platforms that could keep some of your data, because you don't want to expose your data to these free platforms, but something that'll keep it more tight.
Excellent. You also have those guardrails. Oh, Trent, go ahead. Sorry.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Now this is to Trent on the data side of things.
Mhm.
What do you think from a what should the hiring manager demand from their TA partner or request from their TA partner around
Mhm.
specific data that's going to make them more effective in hiring decisions? Have you seen that at iCIMS that there's specific data, around all the noise that's out there that's critical, really important?
Yeah, we just released our free report on the state of frontline hiring, and I always watch what's going on in frontline or high volume hiring because usually whatever's going on there is just exacerbated because of the volume, but it's
Yeah.
prevalent throughout the organization. So just some top line stats. 91% of hiring managers said hiring is urgent. Number one thing that is causing them the most consternation is candidate quality. So they're getting a lot of candidates, but they're not the qualified candidates. And so for me, that is, if I'm looking at the funnel, how can we leverage technology to enhance the hiring manager experience? That's it. And we did in our August report, we worked with everyone's favorite Ben Eubanks with Lighthouse Research and Advisory, and it was really interesting. They did a survey asking TA organizations that were already using AI, where were they seeing the highest ROI? And the top one surprised me, but as I took a step back and looked at the job market, it makes sense. It was in candidate assessment and matching. That really, because I'm always thinking, okay, this is going to be top of the funnel, but we have so many applicants per opening now, at least from our data. The applicant per opening is higher year over year. The real constraint is how do I fast track that top talent? So I do think that if you're looking at a good case study, how do I leverage technology in a way to be able to enhance the hiring manager experience? I think driving that quality will definitely be one of them. Also, too, just to kind of tap onto free resources, the Copilot, the Geminis, even some organizations have a very guarded licensing with ChatGPT. If you have one of those, leverage a GPT, or I forgot what Copilot calls it, Gemini gems. You can actually go and dump all of this knowledge base, like all of the job descriptions, all of the questions that you want to, document from years that have said, okay, if you're interviewing for this position, these are the questions that we want you to ask. Drop that into a knowledge base for that bot, create it, give it a very strong prompt. So that way, and you turn it over to the manager and say, here's your helpful interview tool. All right, I'm interviewing a teller for Bank of America. Level one. Okay, first question. And then I can go and start writing the response that the candidate gives me as a hiring manager. And then at the end, the bot goes, here's your candidate survey. Do you agree with this? All right, cool. Send this to the recruiter. Talk about an easy lift, and I think that's some low-hanging fruit that a lot of organizations are overlooking.
That's a great example. I
Mm.
like that, especially taking troves of historical data and
Oh
having
yeah.
an AI just manage that. Rob, what about your end around that single piece of data that you're bringing to hiring managers that they see as really important to, make a better decision?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think in hiring, it's really about assessing risk. You don't really know the candidate, right? You're making some assumptions based on the resume, what they're telling you, maybe what other people have told you. And so today's age, I mean, we've always had things like research through LinkedIn to look at the market supply chain. But now with some of these new platforms that are emerging, you have even more possibilities to really understand what the talent supply chain looks like in a specific market, as well as the labor market conditions. So you're not just telling managers that, okay, 30 people applied, and of those 30 people, 10 of them have been longlisted, and we like to talk about creating a shortlist or something like that, right? No, you want to augment that conversation and change the experience where you can say, we feel that this is the best of the best because we've scanned the market. It's a quite competitive market. X number of companies are looking for the same talent. Nowadays, pay transparency has become very clear too. So we have a greater understanding of how our role measures up against theirs. It's going to be a little bit more difficult. So we're going to have to think about what the value proposition is. And these kind of data points that perhaps didn't exist as easily in the past can really help influence a hiring manager's decision and make them feel more confident that they're making the right hiring decision based on the data that a recruiter can provide them with.
I love it. I love it. And that ties to what we're going to is around the collaboration between the recruiter and the hiring manager. And does anybody on the panel have a story that they could share where AI has really strengthened that partnership? I mean, your example is great, Rob, right? You're assessing risk, bringing market data, especially to that intake session, and really elevating that experience with the hiring manager. Are there any other examples that you've seen, Trent or Lance, that kind of drive that collaboration through AI?
I don't think we can hear you,
Go-
Lance.
Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. The idea of how do we build trust with the hiring manager still for me sits at the crux of this, and all those important parts that oftentimes recruiters do and are aware of that Rob just laid out, the talent intelligence, the competitive market, pay, all these pieces that are part of whether it's the onion example you use for recruiting or a glacier with all the work below the waterline that we don't see. That idea of engaging with the hiring manager and then how can we better serve them? We've used some examples here already today to help them feel more confident in the process, with a more effective job description that doesn't seem like this 2-day work requirement for them to how do I get all these pieces into a document, a list of requirements. There's opportunities for us to, in that relationship, use some of these tools to show them how you're giving them back time. Following up on Jason's example with because of the market intelligence we have, because you and I have worked together, because of our comp, these are things I know to give you this list of 3 candidates who, because I've already interviewed 10, and based on what I've learned about you, these are the people that I think you can confidently interview. That kind of 10 people to 3 people for you to interview, I think really is how the hiring manager starts to say, you know what, you're my person, and together we're solving this critical business problem, because that's what every rec really is. It's a business problem that needs solving, and we're their partner.
I love it. I love it. Trent, anything to add or?
No, I'm not going to follow that.
I'm going to go off script a little bit and with the hiring manager conversation. Do you see in the collaboration and strengthening that partnership, is it a two-way street? Is it mostly recruiters bringing the AI innovation, or are you also seeing hiring managers saying, "Hey, Trent, take a look at this. Let's start using," like, is it coming that way? Is it a two-way street, Trent or others?
I can kind of approach it from an HR tech since that's the side that I'm on now.
Yeah.
One of the things that we are finding who's really driving the conversation of leveraging AI in TA is really coming from the C-suite, primarily from the CTO, CIO. Looking at there's a better way of doing this. There's definitely some cost saves. They're looking at the consolidation. You opened it with some of the consolidation going on in currently in the HR tech arena. So I do think that that's some of the driving force of really the line of business is going, why can't you guys be just a little bit more efficient? And if you're looking at the people function, who always goes first? It's always TA and then followed right behind it by L&D. So then if we scale out and we look at where is AI, like the big, cool, sexy startup companies in HR tech, it's in L&D, it's in performance, and it's in TA, kind of the top of the funnel whenever it comes to the people functions. So I do think that we're going to start to see a lot more scaling in that because as companies continue to try to keep their FTE flat over the next couple of years, there's been several articles that have come out this week about it. I do think that they're going to be looking at how do we maximize the employees that we have, and they're going to look at recruiting. How can we augment our recruiters to be able to actually become the talent advisors that we changed their title to 6 or 7 years ago. Now, removing some of that process work, the paper moving and all that, I think recruiters are actually going to be able to rise to that occasion finally.
Gotcha. Robert, Lance, anything to add to that, or?
I mean, I would say I agree with Trent. I think the drive is really coming from the top of the house to increase capacity to enable recruiters to become that talent advisor, as you described, Trent. I'd say that it depends from a hiring manager perspective. It's not because of lack of interest, but perhaps more so they're not necessarily thinking about the activities that recruiting does. More so they're thinking about AI use within their own domain. But as soon as we bring it up, I think there's a lot of interest and a lot of openness to, leveraging AI to make some more informed decisions.
Gotcha. Rob, we're seeing, candidates are using AI to optimize their resumes to a specific job description. Companies are using AI to screen and filter out candidates. So you kind of got candidates and companies like using AI to better their position. What's your perspective at WTW? Do you think there's some truth to that, or how are you able to sort through that noise?
Yeah, so it's AI versus AI is very real. It's a threat, but it's not a war. I'd say it's more of an evolution that just continues to evolve every day. As soon as we think we've got it, something else comes out. So I think also we need to recognize that candidates using AI isn't inherently a bad thing. It often means better clarity and formatting. The risk is when candidates start to inflate their skills or mask personalities, but that risk has always existed. Even before AI, people were doing that. It's now just become a little bit bigger because of the scalability of AI. So our approach is to shift focus from what's written, like on the resume, to what's actually being demonstrated. And we try to do this by using structured interviews or even skill-based assessments that are a little bit harder for AI to fake, such as live role-based activities or presentations or assessments. And if live is not an option, then we can always deploy one remotely. But we will want to ensure that it is controlled and we could follow up on that particular assessment with a discussion on the assessment itself with some probing questions where we'll inject some questions wherein perhaps there's a bit unexpected again that an AI may not be able to predict, such as names of individuals, names of project names or projects, those kinds of things. So that's how we're safeguarding our process. And we also do want to hire talent with AI literacy. So we want to balance it. And in order to do that, actually, what we're doing is equipping managers, again, because they're not necessarily thinking about AI competency and literacy per se. They know they want to attract talent, but sometimes they're a little bit more concerned about faking an assessment, as an example. So one of the things that we've done to enable managers is build some AI literacy guides, and we're showing them how to measure capability, whether it's a beginner, advanced, or expert level, and how it could be tailored to a particular role or candidate profile. So these tools are helping managers really integrate these kind of questions into the interview questionnaire so that they can really understand real experiences and validate authenticity of the candidate. So hopefully this helps reduce that overly polished resume so we can truly understand their capability versus just a really nice resume.
Right. I love it. I love it.
And can I add 2 data points to Rob's fantastic answer? The first one from some data that we've done in our workforce reports, 63% of our base of candidates sit in the millennial and Gen Z, 63%. Most of them, don't quote me, it's north of 60%, want to be able to showcase their skills, just like Rob was saying, not on a resume. They want to be able to take that assessment. They want to be able to do that online, whatever it is, to be able to prove that they actually have the skill set, even if they don't have the experience. So I think that's going to be a driving force in 2026 and beyond. And then flipping my role, the other half of me is to work a lot with industry analysts. And there seems to be this undercurrent that a lot of analysts feel that because of some of the concerns with AI creating fake and fraudulent, all this stuff, that there's going to be this AI whiplash, as one of the analysts called it, and they're going to go headlong for the next 18 months. They really see the market for the next 18 months focused on how do we assess for skill set, not for fit, but for skill set, including AI literacy. So as always, Rob is 100% on point.
In front of that. It's an excellent point. Lance, anything to add from Barracuda's perspective?
It's interesting how we're seeing the ecosystem here that's evolving between not just candidates and hiring managers um, and the recruiters. There's also this piece that was introduced with learning and development and this idea for, I think there's agreement that our best recruiting is retaining our best employees, right? And so Trent's point about L&D and TA being closely involved, aligned, is something we're going to have to what we should be watching for, because assessing for skills now is important, but we're also all thinking, can Lance do what I need him to do 3 years from now? And so this piece of curiosity and how people are responding to change. These are all things that bring me back to the old school referrals. People that we have worked with and watched who've responded to what was happening 3, 5, 7 years ago. And look at where they are now. Look at how they've evolved. Well, guess what? Some of that is foundational to what we're going through now. So I find this piece of the learning and development piece tied with our own experiences for people, I think keeps, while it's great to have tools, and I talked about one myself here, that's going to help you find the next new person. I also think that in our own organizations and in our own networks, we also just need to continue to leverage that, because we've seen as humans people who are moving with change.
And
Have you seen?
I'm sorry, Jason. I think Lance brings up something great. I mean, he's talking about the network. I want to look in. All right. How many awesome internal people are sitting waiting to be promoted who have no clue that the job is out there, no clue that they have transferable skills? To me, that's what I get really excited. Former practitioner, I would be like all over this. How do I go and find that person that maybe just got a certification in Google Gemini, or one of the new AI certifications that are coming out, and I've got this role, but I need someone that's got some AI literacy, some good, strong AI knowledge in X, Y, and Z, but the manager also wants that institutional knowledge. I can have that AI sit on top and go and say, hey, did you know that Jason just got his certification and I sent him the assessment? He scored a 98 on it.
Yeah.
He doesn't necessarily have the experience, but he's got the skill set and he's got the product knowledge and the institutional knowledge. I think this is going to be a way that we can start harvesting a lot more internal talent, which is going to help our retention, which is ultimately going to help our culture. And first and foremost, it's going to help profitability, because you don't have that on ramp, that ramp up time of bringing somebody from external, internal, and getting them up to the ready to do the job.
Gotcha. I think that's a great, yeah, leveraging internal talent, which is a huge asset, upskilling them.
Mhm.
I'm
And
curious.
from a hiring manager standpoint, you don't have to train the person. You don't have to go here and do this, go here and do that. Like, if we're talking about enhancing the hiring manager experience, bringing them someone who already has that organizational knowledge and some of the skill set, oh my gosh, you'll make them they'll be tickle pink.
And employees they're dying for those opportunities, right?
Have been for
They want to be
years.
reskilled, right? They're yearning for it.
Hmm.
I love it. Trent, I'm going to go to the policy and governance side. I know you had you brought it up earlier as where do I start? And
Right.
is there one thing that you can share with the audience from a policy governance to reduce risk for a hiring manager so they don't bring adverse impact or AI gobbledygook into the hiring process that would put the organization at risk?
Absolutely. I am actually going to do a little bit of a plug. If you go to our YouTube, go to iCIMS YouTube, look under the Fireside Chat playlist. There's one where we actually go through our responsible AI, and our chief product officer walks through our 4-step program in a lot more eloquent way than I can ever do it. As a general rule, and what I am seeing, and it's getting better. early on, it was, hey, we got AI, we dropped it in there, and then everyone gets surprised, like, well, we have bias, we have this. Candidates are kind of flagging, going, this AI interviewer didn't really give me the time of day. The question that I love to ask senior leaders is, would you hire an employee, have them start on day one without an orientation, without telling them how to sign into their computer, but giving them access to everything, and not have a one-on-one and not have an end of the year performance review? Would you be surprised if that employee completely bombed and ruined everything that it touched? No. The same as with AI. You've got to train the model. You've got to be able to create those guardrails first and foremost early on. So my suggestion, good rule of thumb, sit down with your operational risk, sit down with legal, all right? Make the business case to legal. Get them to help you create those guardrails. That way you can start testing on the front end, because if something goes wrong and legal has been with you, helping you set everything up, and something goes sideways, they're not going to come breathing fire down your neck. They're going to be like, oh crap, we missed that. How do we fix that in the future? It's going to be that partnership and that collaboration. What I find is that legal gets brought in whenever something external comes and says, hey, something's wrong. And that is not the way that you want legal to be introduced to your AI. Bring them in. They are partners. And they're going to ask you questions that you're not going to think of, because that's not your lane. So again, if you get a chance, go. It's a 20-minute video. He walks through the responsible AI framework, but it's simple things like set up your ethics, set up your accountability. When things go wrong, who's responsible for handling X, Y, and Z? And then also to have a council, have someone that has some type of oversight that is cross-functional, that's looking at this governance model. And when things go wrong, they're kind of the council that figures things out. So that way you're spreading the accountability, but you're also spreading the insight, and you're bringing all of the knowledge to the table, which is right now, that's all we can do, because this is so new and it's moving so fast.
Good. Any panelists want to add to Trent on governance?
Sure, I'll add on that, Jason. I think, well, one of the single things we should be telling hire managers is just to exercise caution, right? I think you should see the AI tool as a replacement, but more as an augmentation. It's very easy to say, oh, okay, this is identified, these are the candidates. I feel confident with the decision, and let's go. But that may not be the best method, right? We want to make sure that we are assessing and auditing and controlling the process to make sure that there isn't bias, as Trent mentioned. And so I think it's important to do that, but also in the spirit of the fraud that we've been talking about, just think about ways to identify maybe some suspicious activity, particularly for those remote positions or even contingent workers where we see a greater risk. So recruiters should be providing managers what you should look for, whether it's, limited eye movement or lip movement or suspicious activity in the video, distortions, things like that. We want to make sure we arm managers with the ability to make good hiring decisions, but also be able to assess the level of risk.
That's a good point, especially with, I think we've heard in the news in the Wall Street Journal about the North Korean programmers that were IT contractors that have been working for companies for years. I'm seeing more companies or hearing more companies actually going to an in-person validation of during the I-9 process to make sure that, checking the ID and going back to that manual process. I don't know if that's a trend or not, or if there's virtual technologies that are coming that can validate that.
Oh, you're opening a whole slew of risks there with PII. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but that gave me acid reflux of thinking of something going, yes, this is Jason. Oh, God bless. No, let's not.
Yeah. What about on the transparency side with AI? This is to Trent and the others, but how are recruiters, coaching recruiters to effectively communicate with the candidate about how the organization is using AI, and then also with the hiring manager who they may not even know that they're using AI, and the recruiting team or TA is using AI in the recruiting process?
One of my favorite best practices that I have heard is, and this particular organization, it fell under OFCCP, so you had to do all these forms and everything. The very last thing was, thank you for applying. Here's a journey map of what you can expect as a candidate. Here's where we're using AI. Here's where we're using a human. Thank you. And if you have any questions or if you want to opt out, click here. And it's send an email so that way the recruiter would go and say, remove this person from AI. Like, very simple way to let all candidates know AI did not disqualify you. That's called a DNQ, right? That is a question that you answered the wrong answer. It's not AI. That's an automation going, you're not qualified, or a recruiter actually looked and determined you don't really meet the qualifications. What's happening, I think, is that anytime someone is declined very quickly, because the public is not as educated and we as recruiting industry have not done a great job educating and pulling the curtain back for hiring managers and for candidates, I think they're just naturally going, well, that's AI that's doing it. And we all know that's not the case.
Yeah. Anything on your side, Lance or Rob, around coaching the recruiters to talk about the impact of AI in the process? I think that's a great example, Trent, and a best practice. I love it.
Yeah, I would add, Jason, just compliment what Trent said. It's important to be transparent. So it's good to have an AI statement on your career site and probably on your job descriptions as well that describes, just as Trent said, how you're using AI, but also mention, ethical use of AI, because we know that candidates are probably going to use AI, and we're aware of that. And it's not that we don't expect them to use it, but we expect them to use it in an ethical way and be transparent about it, just as we're being transparent with them. So I think it works both ways.
Love it. Lastly, why don't we just end on any, success and adoption, change management is all about successful storytelling across your organization where talent acquisition, partnership with the hiring managers effectively used it. I think we've had some examples that you've already shared, but is there anything that you've shared, let's say with business leaders about a specific example? It's like, hey, we did this, and this, and this was the impact that it had. Anything you can share with the audience?
I'll go first. I think there's two examples that I would share, and one is how they're really about experiences, to be honest. One with the candidate and one with the hiring manager. So if you think about the candidate experience during that interview, because we're now leveraging AI to take things like interview notes, that conversation with the candidate is much different. You're less focused on capturing as much as possible, and at the end of the interview, trying to remember or read your chicken scratches, but rather you can actually have a conversation and really probe into some really specific areas that you're looking to find more information on. And then with the hiring manager, it's the same. When you go into those intake discussions or those debrief meetings, you don't have to worry about taking those notes anymore. You can have a much more enriching conversation, and then you have the platform to assist you with afterwards. So I think that's been really, really helpful.
Yeah. I think that I've heard from hiring managers too, is the consistency of the interview write-up, and it's all formatted the same across all the different candidates, across all different recruiters. That consistency, they like that. They like it segmented the way AI can do it, especially in note-taking. Lance, anything on your end with Barracuda?
I love the example of listening because I think that's a superpower of recruiters is listening. Yes, they have to assess because they've got an important business problem to solve, as we've talked about, but they're also listening for what's next. Rob may give an example that means he is not right for this role, but because I'm thinking about what's next, man, I am going to maintain this relationship with Rob for when this new role pops. And if I was busy writing down notes, I might miss that. The other one that I would just encourage people is in the conversations across the business with business partners, with the hiring managers, with the interview teams, is share the things that we need help solving. And I'll give a quick example. We're not using data as effectively as we would like. And so in a conversation with the engineering team over a role, they heard what the recruiting team has shared. And that's now led to this partnership with our business analytics and our data engineering team that has TA all of a sudden on this road, TA and HR, on a road to have better data, both sharing, but also trust, and then the insights that come with that. And that wouldn't have happened if we're not talking with the business and sharing instead of just being all knowing. And so I'm really excited that that struggle, that something we're working on, the business heard, and they're now helping us solve it. And I think it's a great example of, oh, by the way, we're using AI as a cybersecurity company to keep up with threats. They're going to use some of those same tools to help us better support them.
And you're also doing a hackathon, I thought, when we talked of, like
That's
with
right. That's
marketing.
right.
But you said, can you tell us more about that?
That one is goes back to something we were talking about earlier with how do I know that I'm actually interviewing Lemise? And you're right, Trent, there's a lot of things we need to navigate, but because there's a lot of virtual interviews now, how do I know that the interview I had with Lemise is Rob had the same conversation with the same person? And so that's something that um, our recruiting team and engineering team are looking to solve is how can we do this in a respectful way, but also making sure that the person who's progressing from step to step is indeed Jason. So we're looking forward to seeing what comes out. That hackathon is actually underway right now.
That's cool. I love the collaboration. I think that's when those
Yeah,
synergies
that's
really
the
come
best part.
together, and you're thinking about solving problems together with the businesses that you support. Well, that's it for our panelists. Again, thank you so much for your insights that you've shared and your know-how and expertise across the AI spectrum, and really do appreciate it. Lamise, I haven't looked at the chat, but let me open it up to questions to the audience that you can pose to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see any yet, but if anyone has questions for the panelists, we have a smart room, and I was taking tons of notes. There is a lot of insights from our three panelists returning to the RPOA, Rob and Trent, and welcoming Lance on the RPOA webinar program. Jason, excellent time. I think you had all your questions. I think we challenged you that we had too many questions.
Way to cut one, so I was good with that.
I think that's why you covered many questions. I'm not seeing any from the audience. In the meantime, as Jason mentioned, the vision is to make this the first of a three-part conversation. Today, we focused on the hiring manager and reviewing the AI hype, noise, and truth. And in future webinars, we are going to look at the recruiter perspective and the candidate perspective. Tons of content as well. We are ending this year on a strong note with this panel, and really excited to bring the TA perspective to the RPOA audience, because we do see TA as part of the ecosystem that the association serves.
Great. Well, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Trent. Thank you, Lance. Really insightful. I heard a lot of good things from you. One, like starting with what are we solving for? So starting with that, your Trent brought up governance. Let's start with governance and think about what are the structure and guardrails that we need to have. A couple of good resources that Trent brought up, the state of hiring report. It sounds like Trent's that's hot off the press, which
Yep.
would be great to see. And you said you can download it on your website.
Yes, if you go to iCIMS.com, go to resources and talent insights, you'll find all of our monthly workforce report and our anchor report. And if you're really interested in what's going on data-wise with AI from a TA perspective, like actual TA org data, as well as candidate perspective, go and check out the August workforce report. We get into that.
Perfect. I'm going to go listen to the iCIMS YouTube, Responsible AI. I think that's a great resource just to see what your CTO has to say. I think from a human standpoint, I heard a lot of words come out that were impactful. Humans listening, trust, confidence, and how AI is supporting all that. So that recruiter, hiring manager, candidate, triangle is still foundationally sound. It's just being streamlined and more effective. So excited about the possibilities. And again, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jason. And stay tuned for more content from the RPOA coming up in 2026.
Thanks, Lumis. Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.